The shuttle came down slowly through the clouds of Station Prime. Inside, a young woman sat alone near the window. Her name was Yuna. She was 19 years old, and she was the first human to ever attend the Galactic Academy of Interstellar Sciences. Yuna pressed her hand against the cold glass and watched the massive station grow larger. It was beautiful. Towers of white metal rose into the artificial sky. Gardens floated between buildings. Ships of every size moved through the air like fish in water. She had seen pictures before, but pictures were nothing compared to this. The shuttle landed with a soft bump. Yuna picked up her bag. It was old and worn, held together with tape in some places. Everything she owned was inside. She took a deep breath and walked toward the door. Outside, the air was cool and smelled clean. Too clean, Yuna thought. Like a hospital. She stepped onto the platform and immediately felt eyes on her. Dozens of aliens had gathered to watch her arrive. Some were tall and thin with skin like glass. Others were huge and covered in hard shells like armor. A few floated in the air, their bodies made of something that looked like smoke. Nobody came to greet her. Nobody smiled. They just watched like scientists studying a strange insect. Yuna was used to this. She kept her face calm and walked forward. A large alien blocked her path. He was Corthan. She knew from her studies. His people came from a world called Velos, where the gravity was low and the weather was always perfect. His body was covered in thick gray plates, and he stood nearly 3 meters tall. Despite his size, his eyes were soft, almost gentle. "You are the human," he said. His voice was deep but not unfriendly. "Yes," Yuna said. "My name is Yuna. I am Deho. I am the prefect of your dormitory building. I will show you to your room." Yuna nodded and followed him. As they walked, she heard whispers behind her. The translator in her ear picked up pieces of conversation. So small. How did such a species even reach space? Their planet is Class 4, nothing special. Moderate conditions. She will not last 1 semester. Yuna said nothing. She had learned long ago that words meant little. Actions meant everything. Deho led her through wide hallways and across bridges that hung over gardens full of strange plants. Everywhere they went, students stopped to stare. Yuna counted at least 15 different species. Some she recognized. Most she did not. Finally, they reached a tall building made of dark metal. Deho stopped at the entrance. "This is the residential tower for lower-tier students," he said. There was something like apology in his voice. "Your room is on the 4th floor. Number 47. "Thank you," Yuna said. She expected him to leave, but Deho hesitated. He looked down at her with an expression she could not read. "Human," he said slowly, "the Academy is not always kind to new species, especially species that are not yet proven. Do you understand?" "I understand." "Good." He paused again. "Your people. What are they like?" Yuna thought about the question. She thought about Earth, about the cities built on fault lines, the villages in hurricane paths, the towns at the feet of volcanoes. She thought about her grandmother, who had survived a tsunami and rebuilt her home with her own hands. She thought about her father, who had worked in mines deep underground, where the heat could kill a man in hours. "We survive," she said simply. Deho nodded, though he did not seem to understand. He turned and walked away, his heavy footsteps echoing on the metal floor. Yuna found her room easily. It was small. A bed, a desk, a window that looked out at the wall. The previous occupant had left marks on the walls, scratches that might have been writing in some alien language. The air system hummed quietly. She put her bag on the bed and sat down. The mattress was too soft. The light was too bright. The silence was too complete. On Earth, there was never true silence. There was always wind or rain, or the sound of distant traffic, or birds singing, or insects buzzing. Here, there was nothing. Just the hum of machines. Yuna closed her eyes and remembered her home. A small apartment in a city called Bizan. The smell of the sea. The sound of her mother cooking in the kitchen. The feeling of summer heat pressing down like a heavy blanket. She missed it. She missed it so much that her chest hurt, but she had not come here to be comfortable. She had come here to learn. To prove that humans belonged among the stars. To show the galaxy that her people were more than just another primitive species from a forgotten corner of space. She opened her eyes and stood up. There was work to do. Over the next few days, Yuna learned the rhythms of the academy. Classes began early and ended late. The subjects were difficult. Galactic history, interstellar navigation, xenobiology, physics, that bent her mind in ways she had never imagined. She struggled with some things. The math was different. The science used concepts that had no equivalent on Earth, but she studied every night until her eyes burned. And slowly she began to understand. The other students ignored her mostly. A few were openly hostile. They knocked her materials off her desk. They spoke about her as if she was not there. They laughed when she asked questions in class, but some were curious. A Valari girl named June sat next to her in xenobiology class. The Valari were delicate creatures with skin like frosted glass and eyes that glowed faintly blue. June was smaller than most of her kind, and she seemed nervous about everything. "Your planet," June said one day, her voice barely above a whisper. "What is it like?" Yuna thought about how to answer. How could she explain Earth to someone who had never known danger? How could she describe a world where the ground could shake without warning, where the sky could turn black with storms, where creatures with claws and teeth hunted in the shadows? "It is beautiful," Yuna said finally, "and dangerous. Very dangerous." June's glowing eyes widened. "Dangerous how?" Yuna smiled. It was not a happy smile. "In every way you can imagine," she said. "In many ways you cannot." June seemed confused by this answer, but she did not ask more questions. She simply nodded and returned to her studies. Yuna looked out the classroom window at the peaceful sky of Station Prime. She thought about the storms of Earth, the earthquakes, the predators, the diseases, the 1,000 different ways her planet tried to kill its children every single day. And she thought about how her people had faced all of it and refused to die. The galaxy thought humans were weak. They thought Earth was ordinary. They were wrong, and soon they would understand. 3 weeks passed at the academy. Yuna learned to navigate the long hallways and floating bridges. She learned which foods her stomach could handle and which made her sick. She learned to sleep through the strange silence of the station, though she never quite got used to it. She also learned that she was being watched. The professors observed her with careful eyes. They made notes when she answered questions. They whispered to each other when she left the room. Yuna pretended not to notice, but she noticed everything. It was a habit from Earth, where not noticing could get you killed. On the first day of the 4th week, Professor Hari made an announcement. "Tomorrow, you will face your first survival examination," he said. Professor Hari was Valari, like June, but old. Very old. His skin had lost its glow and turned the color of old paper. His eyes were dim, but his voice was still strong, and when he spoke, everyone listened. "You will be transported to a controlled biodome," he continued. "The environment will simulate Category 3 conditions. You will work in teams of 3. Your goal is simple. Reach the extraction point within 12 hours. Anyone who fails will receive a failing grade for this section of the course." The students murmured nervously. Category 3 was considered moderately dangerous by galactic standards. temperature changes, rough terrain, small predators. Nothing that should kill a prepared student, but enough to test their skills. Yuna felt something stir in her chest. Excitement, maybe. Or recognition. This was something she understood. Professor Hari read out the team assignments. Yuna was placed with Sujin, a young Valari female who trembled at the mention of temperature changes, and Taiwu, a Korthan male who had made his dislike of humans very clear over the past weeks. When their names were called together, Taiwu made a sound of disgust. Sujin looked like she might cry. Yuna said nothing. She simply nodded and began preparing. That night, she could not sleep. She lay in her bed and thought about the test. Category 3 conditions. What did that mean exactly? She had studied the Galactic classification system. Category 1 was a paradise. Perfect temperature, no predators, stable weather. Category 10 was supposed to be impossible. A world so hostile that nothing could survive. Earth was listed as Category 4 in the database. Moderate challenges. Occasional extreme weather. Some dangerous animals. Yuna had laughed when she first read that entry. Whoever wrote it had clearly never been to Earth. The next morning, the students gathered at the transport bay. Yuna wore simple clothes. Strong boots. A light jacket. She had nothing else. The other students had expensive equipment. Climate-controlled suits. Emergency beacons. Nutritional supplements. Taiwu looked at her and shook his head. You will die out there, human. Yuna did not respond. The transport took them to the biodome. It was enormous, kilometers across, with a ceiling so high it looked like a real sky. The environment inside was a forest. Tall trees with blue leaves. A river running through the middle. Hills in the distance. The temperature was 22 degrees. Light rain was falling. For Yuna, it felt like a pleasant spring day. For Sujin, it was a disaster. The Valari female began shivering within the first 10 minutes. It's so cold, she whispered. How can it be so cold? Taiwu was not much better. The Korthan's hard shell was designed for his homeworld's dry, warm climate. The humidity made his plates crack slightly at the edges. He moved slowly, carefully, like every step hurt. Yuna assessed the situation quickly. They had 12 hours. The extraction point was roughly 20 kilometers away, according to the brief map they had been shown. The terrain was rough but not impossible. The predators were small. The real danger was her teammates. We need shelter, she said. Sujin needs to warm up. Taiwu glared at her. Do not give me orders, human. I am not giving orders. I am stating facts. If Sujin's core temperature drops too much, she will go into shock. If you keep walking with cracked armor, you will tear your own skin. We need shelter. We need fire. We need to rest before we move. For a long moment, Taiwu stared at her. Then, slowly, he nodded. Yuna found a spot beneath a cluster of large trees. The branches above blocked most of the rain. She gathered fallen wood and dry leaves. Taiwu watched her with confusion. What are you doing? Making fire. With what? We have no ignition tools. Yuna did not answer. She found 2 sticks of the right type. One hard, one soft. She began spinning the hard stick against the soft one, pressing down, creating friction. Her hands moved fast and steady. This was something she had learned as a child, at a summer camp in the mountains outside. Smoke began to rise. Taiwu's eyes went wide. A spark caught. Yuna blew gently, feeding the tiny flame with dry leaves. Within minutes, she had a small fire burning. Sujin crawled close to the warmth, her whole body shaking. How did you do that? Practice, Yuna said. She spent the next hour building a proper shelter. She wove branches together, covered them with large leaves, created a space that trapped the heat from the fire. She found plants that she recognized as edible from her xenobiology studies and made a simple meal. She created a perimeter of twisted vines with small stones attached, so that anything approaching would make noise. The professors watching through hidden cameras said nothing, but they recorded everything. By midday, Sujin was stable. Taiwu's armor had dried and stopped cracking. They were ready to move. The journey was hard. The terrain was uneven. Small creatures watched from the shadows. Once, a predator the size of a large dog approached their camp. It had 6 legs and teeth like needles. Yuna picked up a heavy branch and stood between the creature and her teammates. She made herself look large. She made loud sounds. She stared directly into the predator's eyes. On Earth, this would have been dangerous. Many predators saw direct eye contact as a challenge. But Yuna had read about this species. They were ambush hunters. They avoided confrontation. The creature hesitated. Then it turned and disappeared into the forest. Sujin was crying softly. Taiwu was frozen in place. Yuna lowered the branch. We should keep moving. They reached the extraction point with 2 hours to spare. Sujin had to be carried for the last 6 kilometers. Yuna put the Valari girl on her back and walked without stopping, her legs burning, her lungs working hard, her heart pounding at her chest. When they finally reached the platform, Taiwu collapsed. His breathing was heavy. His armor was covered in mud and scratches. "Human," he said between breaths. How did you know all of that?" Yuna set Sujin down gently. She wiped sweat from her face. She looked at the Korthan with calm eyes. "Summer camp," she said. "I was 8 years old." Taiwu stared at her. He did not understand. How could he? His people came from a world where children played in perfect gardens under perfect skies. They had never needed to learn how to make fire. They had never needed to face predators. They had never needed to survive. The transport came to collect them. As Yuna climbed aboard, she looked back at the biodome. Category 3 conditions. Moderately challenging. She thought about the mountains of Earth, where temperatures dropped far below freezing. She thought about the jungles, where everything wanted to eat you. She thought about the deserts, where water was more precious than gold. Category 3 was nothing. Category 3 was a vacation dot, and somewhere deep inside her, Yuna smiled. After the survival test, things changed. Sujin began sitting with Yuna at meals. Taiwu nodded at her in the hallways, which was more respect than he had ever shown before. Some students looked at her differently now, with curiosity instead of contempt. But not everyone was happy about the human's success. Minho was a Korthan from a wealthy family. His father owned mining operations across 3 star systems. His mother was a senator in the Galactic Council. He had grown up with everything he ever wanted, and he had never been told no. From the first day, Minho had decided that he did not like humans. They were primitive. They were ugly. They came from a forgettable planet in a forgettable corner of the galaxy. They did not belong at the academy. They did not belong among civilized species. And now this human girl was making him look bad. The harassment started small. Yuna would return to her room and find her materials moved. Her assignments would disappear from the submission system. Her food would be contaminated with substances that made her sick for hours. She said nothing. She filed no complaints. She simply adapted, as humans always did. She made copies of her work. She prepared her own food. She installed a simple lock on her door, using tools she had borrowed from the engineering lab. Minho grew frustrated. The human would not break. She would not cry. She would not run away. She just kept going, day after day, like a machine that did not know how to stop. He decided to try something more direct. The zero-gravity, Training Hall was one of the Academy's most impressive facilities. A massive sphere where gravity could be adjusted or eliminated entirely. Students learned to move in space, to work without the pull of a planet beneath their feet. Yuna found the training fascinating. On Earth, humans were bound to the ground. They had evolved to walk, to run, to climb. But in zero gravity, everything was different. She had to learn to move all over again, using her whole body in ways she had never imagined. That day, the class was practicing emergency procedures. What to do if your stabilization pack failed. How to navigate using only your body. How to reach safety when everything went wrong. The instructor demonstrated the techniques. Students practiced in pairs. Yuna worked with June, who was surprisingly graceful in zero gravity. The Valari's light body moved easily through the air. Then the instructor called for a full simulation. Everyone would spread out across the sphere. Their stabilization packs would be reduced to minimum power. They would have to navigate back to the central platform using only basic movements. Yuna pushed off from the wall and floated toward her assigned position. She was near the outer edge of the sphere, close to one of the emergency airlocks. The artificial gravity was gone. She hung in empty space, waiting for the signal. That was when her stabilization pack shut down completely. It happened suddenly. One moment she was stable. The next she was spinning, tumbling, moving in a direction she could not control. The airlock was approaching fast. If she hit it at the wrong angle, she could trigger the emergency seal. If the seal engaged, she would be trapped. If she was trapped, she would run out of air. The instructors were far away, too far to reach her in time. The other students watched in horror, frozen by shock. Yuna did not scream. She did not panic. Her mind went cold and clear, the way it always did when death was close. She analyzed her motion. She was spinning on 2 axes, moving toward the airlock at roughly 2 meters per second. She had maybe 15 seconds before impact. Her stabilization pack was dead. She had no tools, no rope, nothing to grab. But she had her body. Yuna tucked her legs in tight, then extended them sharply. The change in mass distribution altered her spin. She was still moving toward the airlock, but now she could see it clearly. There was a service rail running along the edge. If she could grab it, she could stop her momentum. She extended her arm. The rail was coming fast. She would only have one chance. Her fingers closed around cold metal. The impact sent a shock through her entire body. Her shoulder screamed in pain. Her grip held. Yuna hung there for a moment, breathing hard. Then she pulled herself along the rail to safety. The sphere was silent. Everyone was staring at her. The instructor flew over quickly. "Are you injured?" "My shoulder," Yuna said. "Minor damage." "I am fine." The instructor examined her stabilization pack. His face went pale. This unit was sabotaged. The shutdown was deliberate. Yuna already knew. She had seen Minho's face when she started spinning. She had seen the satisfaction in his eyes. She had seen that satisfaction turn to shock when she saved herself. The class was dismissed. The incident was reported. But nothing happened. Minho's family was too powerful. His father made some calls. The official report said that malfunction was due to a manufacturing defect. Yuna accepted this. Justice was a luxury. Survival came first. That night, she found Minho alone in the equipment bay. He was checking his own gear, preparing for the next day's training. When he saw her, he smiled. "Human, you are more durable than I expected. But do not worry. Next time, I will be more thorough." Yuna walked toward him slowly. Her steps were quiet. Her face was calm. She stopped exactly 1 meter away, close enough that Minho had to look down at her. "Let me tell you about my planet," she said. Minho laughed. Your planet? That little rock in the middle of nowhere? What could you possibly tell me that would matter? On Earth, Una said, there are creatures called sharks. They swim in our oceans. They have been killing machines for 400 million years. They have rows of teeth that never stop growing. They can smell blood from kilometers away. Minho's smile faded slightly. What is your point? Humans swim in those oceans. For fun. Children do it. We call it going to the beach. She took a small step closer. There are creatures called tigers. They are predators. They weigh 300 kilograms. They have claws that can tear through metal. They hunt in forests where humans live. Another step. We hunted them back. We hunted them so efficiently that they nearly went extinct. We had to create protected areas just to keep them alive. Because without protection, we would have killed them all. Minho was backing away now. His shell plates were tight against his body. His eyes were wide. On my planet, Una continued, the ground shakes without warning. Mountains explode. The sky tears itself apart with lightning and wind. The temperature swings from frozen death to burning heat. Everything, everywhere, is trying to kill us. Every single day. She stopped walking. She was close enough to touch him now. And we are still here. Billions of us. Spread across every corner of that deadly world. We did not just survive, Minho. We conquered. We became the most dangerous thing on a planet full of dangerous things. Her voice dropped to a whisper. You tried to kill me today. You failed. You will not get another chance. Because if you come for me again, I will stop being patient. I will stop being kind. And you will learn exactly what it means to threaten something from a death world. She turned and walked away without looking back. The next day, Minho withdrew from 3 courses. He requested a transfer to different housing. He never spoke to Una again. He never even looked at her. Geun found Una in the library that evening. I heard Minho is leaving some of his classes. People are saying you threatened him. Una turned a page in her book. I did not threaten him. I educated him. About what? Una looked up. Her eyes were calm, but something ancient and fierce lived behind them. Something that had been forged in fire and blood in millions of years of never giving up. About what humans really are, she said. Professor Hari had taught at the academy for 230 years. He had seen thousands of students come and go. He had watched species rise and fall. He had witnessed the birth of new civilizations and the death of old ones. Very little surprised him anymore, but the human surprised him. After the survival test, he began reviewing Una's performance data. The numbers did not make sense. Her physical capabilities exceeded every prediction. Her endurance was extraordinary. Her problem-solving abilities were remarkable. She should not have been able to do what she did. He dug deeper. The Galactic database contained information on every known species. Earth had been added recently, after first contact 3 years ago. The entry was brief. Class 4 planet. Moderate conditions. Population of 8 billion. Newly spacefaring. No significant notes. Hari read the entry and frowned. Something was wrong. The data did not match what he had observed. He requested the original survey files. They arrived a few days later. Thousands of pages of observations from the first contact team. He began reading. The first section described Earth's position in its solar system. 3rd planet from a yellow star. 1 large moon. Orbital period of 365 days. Axial tilt of 23.4 degrees. Hari paused at that last detail. Axial tilt meant seasons. Most civilized worlds had minimal tilt. Seasons were inconvenient. They made agriculture difficult. They created temperature variations. He kept reading. The second section described the planet's geology. Active plate tectonics. moving continents, regular volcanic activity, frequent earthquakes. Hari set down his tablet. Active tectonics? Regular earthquakes? What kind of species evolved on a world where the ground itself could not be trusted? The third section was worse. Earth's atmosphere was 21% oxygen. That was incredibly high. Oxygen was reactive. It caused fires. It caused rust. It caused cellular damage. Most species avoided oxygen-rich environments. Humans breathed it. They needed it to survive. The fourth section described Earth's biosphere. Millions of species. Predators on every continent. Venomous animals, parasites, bacteria and viruses that could kill in hours. Plants that produced poison. Insects that drank blood. And everywhere, competition. Constant, endless competition for resources, for territory, for survival. Hari read for 3 days straight. He did not eat. He barely slept. The more he learned, the more horrified he became. Earth had experienced 5 mass extinction events. 5 times, most life on the planet had been wiped out. Asteroid impacts. Volcanic winters. Climate shifts. Each time, the survivors had adapted and started again. Humans had evolved in this chaos. They had emerged during an ice age, when sheets of frozen water covered much of the planet. They had spread across every environment. Deserts, jungles, mountains, tundra, oceans. They had faced predators with nothing but sharpened sticks and refused to become prey. And then they had started hunting the predators. Hari found records of human history, wars, famines, plagues that killed millions, natural disasters that leveled cities. And through all of it, humans kept going. They rebuilt. They adapted. They survived. There was an image in the files that haunted him. A photograph of humans standing at the top of a mountain called Everest. The temperature at that altitude was -40 degrees. The air contained barely enough oxygen to breathe. The wind could knock a person off the mountain to their death. Humans climbed it for fun. They called it a challenge. Professor Hari called an emergency meeting of the faculty. The conference room was full when he arrived. Professors from every department, administrators, the dean herself, an ancient being from a species so old they had forgotten their own homeworld. "Thank you all for coming," Hari began. His voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. "I have discovered a significant error in our records. An error that affects our understanding of the human species and their homeworld." He activated the central display. Earth appeared, rotating slowly in the holographic projection. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. Earth is currently classified as a Category 4 world, he said. Moderate conditions. Some challenges. This classification is incorrect. He changed the display. Numbers and charts appeared. Temperature ranges. Atmospheric composition. Geological activity. Biological diversity. Based on the actual data, Earth should be classified as Category 12. Silence filled the room. Category 12 is theoretical, someone said. Nothing can survive Category 12 conditions. Correct, Hari replied. That is what we believed. We were wrong. He showed them the photographs. Humans in frozen wastelands. Humans in burning deserts. Humans underwater, surrounded by creatures with teeth like knives. Humans in the sky, falling toward the ground with nothing but fabric to slow them down. Humans do not merely survive these conditions, Hari said. They seek them out. They enjoy them. They consider extreme environments to be recreational opportunities. The dean leaned forward. You are saying that humans evolved on a world more hostile than any we have previously documented. A world that should have killed them. And instead of dying, they became, what? Hari thought about Yuna, about the calm in her eyes when she faced danger, about the ancient knowledge in her movements, about the way she had carried her teammate through hostile terrain without complaint. They became the most adaptable species in known space, he said. They became predators who learned to cooperate. They became prey who refused to be eaten. They became survivors in the purest sense of the word. He changed the display one more time. It showed a list of Earth's apex predators, past and present. Sharks, crocodiles, bears, big cats. All of them deadly. All of them dangerous. And next to each one, a note. Population declining due to human activity. Humans did not just survive their death world, Hari concluded. They dominated it. They bent it to their will. And now they are here, at our academy, learning our technology and our science. In a few generations, they will be everywhere. And we need to understand what that means. The meeting lasted for hours. Arguments, debates, denial. Some professors refused to believe the data. Others demanded immediate action. A few suggested that humans should be removed from the academy, sent back to their dangerous world before they could spread further. But the dean silenced them all with a single question. Has the human student, Yuna, shown any aggression toward other students? The room went quiet. No, Hari admitted. She has shown remarkable restraint. Even when she was targeted by other students. Even when her life was put in danger. She responded with minimum force. She helped her teammates when she could have abandoned them. She has been kind. The dean nodded slowly. Then perhaps the question is not what humans are capable of. Perhaps the question is what they choose to do with that capability. The meeting ended without resolution, but word spread through the academy like fire through dry grass. By the next day, every student knew the truth. The human was not from a moderate world. The human was from a death world. And suddenly, everything they thought they knew about her changed. Yuna noticed the difference immediately. Students moved out of her way in the hallways. Professors treated her with new respect. Even the cafeteria workers gave her larger portions. June found her in the library that evening. Everyone is talking about you. They say your planet is the most dangerous in the galaxy. Yuna turned a page in her book. That is probably an exaggeration. Is it true? The things they are saying? About the earthquakes and the predators and the weather. Yuna thought about home. About the typhoons that swept across the coast every summer. About the sharks that swam in the waters where she learned to swim. About the spiders and snakes and centipedes that lived in every garden, every forest, every corner of the world. Yes, she said. It is true. June sat down across from her. Her glowing eyes were wide with something that might have been fear, or might have been wonder. How did you survive? How did any of you survive? Yuna looked up from her book. She smiled, and it was the smile of a species that had looked death in the face for millions of years and refused to blink. We did not have a choice, she said. So we found a way. 6 months passed at the academy. Yuna rose from the lowest tier to the middle ranks. Her grades were excellent. Her skills were remarkable. She had made friends among species that had never spoken to a human before, but she never forgot that she was being watched. The faculty observed her. The students studied her. The galaxy was trying to understand what humans were, what they could become, what they might mean for the future. Yuna did not mind. She had come to the academy to learn, and she was learning. Every day brought new knowledge, new skills, new understanding of the universe beyond Earth. She also learned about the other species. The Valari were fragile but brilliant, their minds capable of calculations that would take human computers hours. The Korthan were strong and proud, their warrior culture built on honor and discipline. The floating whispers communicated through patterns of light, Their thoughts more complex than any spoken language. Each species had strengths. Each had weaknesses. And slowly, Yuna began to understand where humans fit in the galactic community. They were not the smartest. They were not the strongest. They were not the fastest or the most beautiful or the most advanced. But they were the most stubborn, the most adaptable, the most willing to keep going when everything said they should stop. On a Tuesday afternoon, the alarm started. Yuna was in the library when the red lights began flashing. Emergency broadcasts filled the air. Students ran toward the exits, their faces filled with panic. She grabbed the nearest person, a young Corthan whose name she did not know. "What is happening?" "Containment failure," he gasped. Section 7. The atmospheric systems are venting toxic gas into the dormitories. Section 7. That was where the lower-tier students lived. That was where June lived. Yuna started running. The hallways were chaos. Students pushed and shoved, trying to reach the safe zones. The emergency systems were overwhelmed. The gas was spreading faster than the containment protocols could handle. Yuna reached Section 7 in 4 minutes. The air was already turning yellow. The gas was heavier than oxygen, settling toward the floor, filling the rooms from the bottom up. She found June in her room, unconscious on the floor. The Valari's delicate lungs had failed almost immediately. She was still breathing, but barely. Yuna picked her up and ran. The gas burned her eyes. It made her lungs ache with every breath. On any other world, she would have collapsed within minutes. But Yuna was from Earth, where the air itself could kill you in a dozen different ways. Her body knew how to handle poison. Her cells knew how to survive. She carried June out of Section 7. She found 3 more students along the way, collapsed in the hallways, choking on the toxic air. She carried them too, one at a time, running back into the yellow fog again and again. The emergency teams arrived 20 minutes later. By then, Yuna had pulled 14 students out of the contaminated zone. Her eyes were red and swollen. Her lungs felt like they were filled with broken glass. Her muscles screamed with exhaustion, but everyone was alive. She collapsed outside the medical bay, her body finally giving in to the damage. When she woke, 3 days had passed. The medical team had never seen anything like her recovery. The gas should have killed her. It had killed Valari students within seconds. It had knocked Corthan unconscious within minutes. But Yuna's human biology, evolved on a world where poison was everywhere, had fought back. Her liver had filtered the toxins. Her lungs had adapted. Her cells had refused to die. Taiwu was sitting beside her bed when she opened her eyes. "You saved my cousin," he said. His voice was rough. His eyes were wet. "Sujin. She was in Section 7. She would have died." Yuna tried to sit up. Pain shot through her chest. She lay back down. "Is everyone okay?" "Everyone you pulled out is alive." 14 students. "You went back 7 times. The doctors say you should be dead." Yuna smiled weakly. Humans are hard to kill. Taiwu was quiet for a long moment. Then he leaned forward. "When you first arrived, I thought you were nothing. A small creature from a small world. I thought you would fail. I thought you did not belong here." He paused. "I was wrong. I was so wrong. You belong here more than any of us." Over the next few weeks, stories spread across the academy. The human who ran into poison gas. The human who carried students on her back through deadly air. The human who went back again and again, when anyone else would have given up. The dean requested a private meeting. Yuna stood in the ancient being's office, surrounded by artifacts from 1,000 worlds. The dean floated behind a massive desk, their form shifting and flickering like a candle flame. "You have caused quite a disturbance," the dean said. Their voice was like wind through leaves. "I apologize," Yuna replied. Do not apologize. You saved lives. You showed courage that most species could never match. You demonstrated exactly what Professor Hari tried to explain to us. The Dean moved closer. When we first made contact with your species, we did not understand what you were. We saw a young civilization, barely reaching into space, still fighting among yourselves, still struggling with problems we solved millennia ago. We thought you were children. They paused. We were wrong. You are not children. You are something we have never encountered before. A species forged in fire. A species that learned to thrive in conditions that should have destroyed you. A species that carries the strength of a Deathworld in your blood. Yuna said nothing. She simply listened. The galaxy will change because of humans, the Dean continued. We do not know how. We do not know when, but it will change. And the Academy will be part of that change. You will be part of that change. Yuna thought about Earth, about her family, about the storms and earthquakes and predators that had shaped her people for millions of years. We are not conquerors, she said finally. We are not destroyers. We are survivors. That is all we have ever been. The Dean made a sound that might have been laughter. That is exactly what makes you dangerous. And exactly what makes you valuable. Survive, Yuna of Earth. Survive and show the galaxy what your people can become. Graduation came at the end of the year. Yuna stood with her classmates, receiving her certificate, officially recognized as a graduate of the Galactic Academy. June hugged her, crying softly. Taiwu shook her hand with respect that would have been unimaginable a year ago. Even Deho, the prefect who had greeted her on her first day, nodded with something like pride thought as she walked out of the ceremony hall. Yuna paused and looked up at the artificial sky of Station Prime, somewhere beyond that ceiling. Beyond the station, beyond the stars themselves. Earth waiting. Her death world. Her home. She thought about everything she had learned, everything she had survived, everything that still lay ahead. The galaxy had spent centuries searching for extraordinary species. They had looked for the strongest, the smartest, the most advanced. They had built classifications and categories, trying to measure worth through numbers and data. They had never thought to look for survivors. They had never thought to look for species that had been beaten down by their own world. Again and refused to stay down. They had found humans, and they had discovered something that no classification could capture. Something that no database could explain. Humans were kind. Despite everything. Despite the death world that had forged them. Despite the predators and the disasters and the million ways they could have become monsters. They had learned compassion. They had learned cooperation. They had learned to extend a hand to strangers, to carry the weak, to run into danger for people they barely knew. That was the real miracle. Not the survival. Not the strength. Not the stubborn refusal to die. The miracle was that humans had survived a death world and still remembered how to be gentle. Yuna smiled and walked forward. Into her future, the galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly as it should be.